Chapter 13. The Imperial Knights Training Grounds number 1 stood proudly in the very center of a vast area. Right next to the training grounds was the Knights' Core Institution, the Hall of Ore's Glory, built to overlook the site. Most of the administrative tasks, mission assignments, important events, and various tasks performed by the Knights of deputy level or higher took place there. In other words, it was the heart of the military force that protected the capital and moved the entire empire. It was an utter disgrace for the Imperial Knights that these individuals, who had been mere insects just a few months ago, were now setting foot in such a place. Look over there, a few more of them are coming. A sharp voice rang out towards Gakane and Yudir as they entered the training grounds. A group of knights, not bothering to hide their anger, sneered at the cavalry members. Look at those arms without a single muscle growing. And what about those hands without a hint of calluses? What on earth can we accomplish with them? Can they even read? I can't believe such a disgraceful event is happening in the 1,000-year history of the Imperial Knights. I wonder what His Majesty and the commander are thinking. Yudir glared at them once and then ignored them. Gakane's face turned slightly red, but he didn't show any other reaction. Welcome, Gakane. They met the newcomers and the other members already in the training grounds. Their expressions were not good either, having heard the knight's mockery earlier. A woman who tightly bound long hair stepped forward and greeted Gakane first. Ever, you got here early. Once she receives her last name, she will become Ever Beck. Yudir had known her for some time. She was one of the first awakened individuals who gained fame in the empire after the Redstone fell 2 years ago. Previously an ordinary country girl, her story garnered much attention. A slender woman who single-handedly killed a horde of mountains that had come down from the mountains in search of food. There was no more shocking news in the world. Her story spread like wildfire, fueled by eyewitnesses' accounts. Nearly all the members who had passed the cavalry test and learned her true identity knew her story. Her ability was to strengthen her muscles and skin, which allowed her to tear apart even formidable monsters barehanded, without the use of a weapon. Until Yudir's death, she had carried out several important missions in the cavalry. She should not underestimate her simply because she appeared ordinary. Though there were other individuals with greater strength or defensive power, hardly anyone could use their power as effectively as she could. According to Yudir's memory, Ever had also been appointed as deputy commander of the Shin division. It's quite noisy for our first training session since the division. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. Have they been like that the whole time? Yes, they have been at it non-stop. It was as if they had been doing it since dawn. Well, I suppose busy nobles wouldn't really do that. As Ever spoke with cool expression, a faint smile spread among the Shin division members. I almost thought they wouldn't let us in at all. A small boy standing next to Ever waved his hand with a brightened face and grumbled. He was one of the famous early awakeners, just as famous as Ever, a commoner boy of only 10 years old, Jimmy Ochner, who had split a rock with a single branch. Of course, before receiving his last name, his name was Jimmy. 2 years had passed since the Redstone fell, and now 12 years old Jimmy had left his parents' side and confidently passed the cavalry test. It was said that his parents, although commoners, owned a decent store and could afford to support their son without hesitation. Among the 330 cavalry members, he was the youngest to pass, but everyone believed he had abilities similar to the legendary sword master. His ability to imbue his weapon with energy and use it like the aura of a sword master was more than enough to make enemies tremble in fear. I don't understand why I can't, because usually the children who join the Imperial Knights as a squire start at 10 years old, while I'm already 12. As Jimmy pointed out, most of the prestigious knights began their lives as squires of senior knights around the age of 10. Since they usually become squires to knights with connections to their parents, they didn't have to struggle and mostly learned from experience by observing their mentors and occasionally receiving private lessons in swordsmanship. When they grew older, they officially joined the Knight Order and were commissioned. It was no exaggeration to say that it was a world exclusive to them, one that those of lower status couldn't enter. Show your true strength during the training later, that's all you need to do. As Kane ruffled Jimmy's hair and offered advice, the Shin Division members nodded. There were many commoners among the Shin Division members, more than in Seoul. They were intimidated by the Imperial Knights' haughtiness, but were trying their best to overcome it. Yes, it's still a difficult task for now. In a few years, this issue would be resolved, but not yet. To break free from the deeply rooted social class consciousness and gain confidence, time and experience were needed. And Kishirla Or was supposed to make that happen. Yudir looked at their faces and nodded. It was then. I wondered what all the noise was about. Turns out it's the newbies. A young knight with a frown on his head appeared along with several junior knights. On the Knight Order uniform he wore, there were 3 additional lily patterns engraved above the golden eagle on his chest, unlike the other knights. What does the lily mean? As Jimmy asked with a bewildered expression, Gakane spoke without taking his eyes off the knight. The golden eagle is a symbol of the Imperial Knights, and the lily is a symbol of nobility. If there are 5 lilies on the uniform, it means the knight commander, 4 means the deputy commander, and 3 means the rank just below. So he's a very high-ranking person. Yeah, well, most people don't even get a single lily before they retire. Gakane had once mentioned that he had aimed to join a famous knight order and learn swordsmanship during his childhood. However, he had to give up because his family, despite its prestigious name, didn't have the power to afford the necessary funds to become a knight. The reason there were no commoners in famous knight orders was that the shining uniforms, armor, swords, and horses were not all provided by the higher-ups. The knights had spent a considerable amount of money to maintain their dignity, especially those of the Imperial Knights, where all members were nobles. The blue uniforms they wore were made of high-quality fabric, and their swords were as renowned as the family heirlooms of their respective houses. The situation was entirely different from the cavalry, where almost none of them owned a personal sword except for the recently issued black uniforms. Who told you that you are allowed in here? Who told you that you are allowed in here? The knight with 3 lily badges approached the cavalry members, as most of them couldn't confidently stand up against such an arrogant nobleman. Panic spread among them. Even the usually confident Gakane's face showed a hint of worry for a moment. We are gathered here under the command of our commander for training. The commander? Are you talking about the Duke of Paleta? Yes. Even though he knew the answer, he asked anyway. His arrogant expression said it all. I have seen him many times since we were young. He was always a man of many indulgences, but I never thought he would stoop so low as to gather the likes of you and act as a commander. It must be his greatest whim yet. His knights in Paleta must be weeping. As the knight mocked their relationship with Kishir, anger spread across the faces of the cavalry members. Someone clenched their fist, and the knights behind the one with 3 lilies placed their hands on their swords with scowling faces, appearing ready to draw their weapons at any moment. Yet, only Yudhir maintained a calm, expressionless face amidst the tense atmosphere. Excuse me, but who are you? Yudhir genuinely didn't know who the man was. It wasn't just because Yudhir had few interactions with the Imperial Knights in the past due to his commoner background. He thought he had a good grasp of the faces of the nobles he had met since becoming captain. But there was there were only a few reasons he could think of for not recognizing the man in front of him. One, the man had died or retired before Yudhir became captain. Two, the man had returned to his own territory. Neither reason was honorable for a young knight in his prime, especially he was from a noble family with enough influence to live comfortably in the capital. The man in front of him must be disappeared from the scene before 2 years has passed, knowing that there was nothing to worry about. Even if he turns out to be alive in the future, it doesn't matter. Who am I? The knight with the 3 lilies laughed incredulously, glancing around as if Yudhir's question was an absurd. His bright brown hair, almost golden, was neatly combed behind, and his smooth face was handsome enough to be considered aristocratic anywhere. But in Yudhir's eyes, the man was nothing more than a young fool without discernment. Kiol the Diarca. Have you ever heard of the Duke of Diarca, commoner?